Tonight, a major reversal from President Trump, who's now calling on House Republicans to vote in favor of releasing the Epstein files. Will this compel the Justice Department to act? Plus, President Trump hints at talks with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro after increased pressure from the U.S. expanding its military presence near the South American nation. How talks between the two leaders could change the course in what the White House is calling a counter-drug operation. And Israel honors a fallen ally in Jerusalem.
It is hard to believe that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. The world is quieter, less challenging place without his voice.
A look at how hundreds of people gathered over the weekend to pay tribute, show love, and share their memories of Charlie Kirk. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Release the files. That's the latest call from President Trump in the ongoing saga with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Good evening. Welcome to Faith Nation in Washington. I'm Michelle London. Well, the president is reversing course in a Truth Social post telling Republicans to vote in support of a bipartisan congressional push to release Department of Justice information related to the late Epstein. Meanwhile, the White House is also dealing with a growing chance of an international conflict with Venezuela. Let's get right to our senior White House correspondent, Kelly Wright, for the latest. Kelly, the president says the GOP should vote to release the files. What prompted the change?
Well, I think he's just tired of it going on. The president has always maintained that he did nothing wrong. He reiterated that in that Truth Social post of which you speak, stating that House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because, quote, we have nothing to hide. He said it's time to move on from what he calls a Democrat hoax. He added the Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein, and they're looking at the relationship that Epstein had with various Democrat operatives like former President Bill Clinton and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers. Representatives of Mr. Clinton say the former president did nothing wrong as well. Meantime, President Trump continues to take aim at Democrats on this. Release the files, he says. I don't care. He says he just cares about getting Republicans back on point. In London, the president stated earlier today that he has released, or they have released, some 50,000 pages already. So it's time for Democrats to just release all of it.
50,000 pages. And Kelly, in that same Truth Social post, the president says the party should be talking about the economy. The administration making some major tariff policy changes. What can you tell us about that?
That's right, London. He is very concerned about the affordability factor in America, and he's talking about that. In fact, he will give a speech about the economy here in Washington tonight to a group of McDonald's owners from around the country. In that Truth Social post that you referred to, Mr. Trump said he wants Republicans to focus on affordability. Where, quote, we are winning big, adding our victory on reducing inflation from the highest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people and gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America. The president also adding he has been able to get inflation down to its lowest level right now, and he's taking some executive action to make adjustments on tariffs on lowering costs on foods. He's gearing up for the midterm elections with all of this and getting out in front of the affordability issue to deal with Democrats who will focus on the economy as well. You may recall that Democrats won on affordability in the recent gubernatorial races in Virginia and New Jersey. The president says that's something that has to change because Republicans need to get out in front of this issue since they've done so well since he's become president.
And Kelly, over to international news now. The U.S. has targeted another suspected drug boat over the weekend. This as the USS Gerald R. Ford arrived in the region, and speculation about potential ground strikes in Venezuela grows. Trump says talks with Venezuela's president could be underway. What's the White House's objective with this?
So the president said Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro would like to talk to him. President Trump saying his administration is considering a meeting with him. That remains to be seen. However, the president says he's committed to taking action to stop the flow of deadly drugs into the United States. He wants his administration to tell Congress that same thing, that, quote, we're not letting drugs from Mexico or Venezuela get into this country. Another factor that has to be addressed is the fact that he looks at Mexico as being a problem as well, saying he's eyeing that, and he's looking at all of the waterways, making sure that is stopped. He says nothing is coming through the waterways now, fentanyl and cocaine and other deadly drugs. He says for every boat that they've taken out, it has saved 25,000 American lives. And his message to Mexico is get itself together. And he gave a warning to drug cartels earlier today saying, we know where you live. We know what routes you're taking land-wise, and we will have the power to decide if we will go in and stop that flow of traffic to the United States. He wants no drugs coming to this country from any drug cartels, so he's put Mexico and Venezuela on notice.
And the president will be welcoming the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to the White House tomorrow. In the short time we have left, what's the administration hoping to get out of this meeting, Kelly?
Well, the first thing, he'll cement the relationship that they share together since his trip over there. And this is someone the president has known for many, many years. The president also announced today that he will be approving the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. That's something that they would like to have as well to protect themselves and defend themselves in the region, in the land. The president, as you know, has already taken out the nuclear weaponry of Iran. That's very important to Osama bin Laden, Mohammed bin Salman. Messed up his name there, but MSB, or MBS, as he's known throughout circles, has been able to actually garner a great relationship with the President of the United States. And the two of them will cement that relationship. And of course, they're looking at the Abraham Accords as well.
Some great insight there. Senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright, thank you so much, as always. All right, here to dive even deeper on the growing list of international conflicts, Brad Bowman, Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Brett, thank you so much for being here. Let's start with Venezuela. Tensions are rising, and we have an aircraft carrier in the Caribbean. The Venezuelan military has been placed on high alert. Where do you think this is headed, Brad?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you. No, it is true. The United States has assembled an extraordinary amount of combat power in the Caribbean, in the Southern Command area of responsibility, including the Carrier Strike Group and much, much more. Frankly, we have not seen this amount of American military power in Latin America for quite some time. The president, at a minimum, is trying to cast a shadow of power, if you will, over the negotiating table to get concessions from the Maduro regime. And he may be preparing for additional military action. This is, there is some indication that he might be willing to resolve some of this diplomatically. That military force there will reinforce the president's hand, but it remains to be seen whether they will conduct strikes inside Venezuela, which would be both legally and politically a much more serious step than what we've already seen with the interdiction of these drug boats.
And Brad, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announcing the State Department is designating a Venezuelan cartel as a foreign terrorist organization. How important is that step, and what does that do practically?
Yeah, the Foreign Terrorist Organization, or FTO, list has been around for many, many years. You can actually go on the Department of State website and see which entities are on there. This is a way to apply additional pressure. And some view it as a way as creating credibility, if you will, for military strikes, even though a lot of legal experts disagree on whether the FTO designation provides a legal sanction to go ahead and do these strikes.
And looking ahead to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman visiting D.C. this week, on the agenda is security, you have AI, and nuclear technology. We know President Trump wants to move the needle on establishing diplomatic relations with Israel. What do you expect with that, Brad?
Yeah, no, it's an important visit. The president has prioritized the bilateral relationship with Saudi Arabia. That was among his first trips that we've seen in both terms for President Trump. The Crown Prince is coming. He's interested in American weapons. He's particularly interested in the F-35 fighter. But, my view is that we should not provide America's most advanced aircraft, a fighter jet, to a country that refuses to recognize our best and most reliable ally in the Middle East, and that is Israel. So I think the president has leverage here, and he should use it to try to get Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel.
And talk about human rights. We know some advocates are pushing for it to be on the agenda. Do you expect President Trump will bring it up with the Crown Prince?
I would be surprised. That's not something that President Trump normally emphasizes. You know, there are concerns related to Saudi Arabia. We had the murder of Khashoggi several years back, and that's one of the reasons why there was tension between the Biden administration and the Crown Prince. I don't expect the president will bring it up, but I think and I hope that's something that might be brought up behind closed doors, even as we identify common interests, which we have many with Saudi Arabia, and move toward a regional security architecture that will deter and defeat aggression from the Islamic Republic of Iran.
And I want to ask you about this attack in Nigeria, Brad. We're hearing 25 schoolgirls were abducted, one school staffer killed and another wounded. And sadly, kidnappings have become all too common over the last decade. Do you see the U.S. getting involved?
You know, the president has suggested that we might, but this is not something that 1 or 2 or 3 military strikes are going to resolve. There's a longstanding issue there with both Islamist terrorist organizations and just these armed bandit gangs that are looking to take hostages and raise money. So this is you know, we should care when innocent people are hurt. We should care when religious minorities, including Christians, are hurt. We also know a lot of Muslims are being killed as well. But this is not something that's going to be solved by 1 or 2 military strikes. It's going to require a much more comprehensive approach in coordination with the government there.
Brad, do you have any final thoughts on Nigeria or other topics we've talked about today?
Yeah, no, my main point here with the Crown Prince's visit is that Saudi Arabia is an important security partner, a flawed partner, but an important partner. He's coming with a wish list. I think we should not provide our best fighter to him until he answers some important questions related to Riyadh's relationship with China, that we follow the law related to Israel's qualitative military edge, which is not optional, it's the law. And that I don't think that first fighter jet should be delivered until Saudi Arabia normalizes the relationship with Israel. Why would we do that? Why would we not use that as leverage? That's my view.
Using that as leverage. Thank you so much, Brad Bowman from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, next on Faith Nation, Venezuela fallout. How one Caribbean nation landed in the crosshairs of an international conflict. That's next. Welcome back to Faith Nation. The U.S. Navy's recent strikes on drug-running boats have rattled nerves across the Caribbean. As tensions rise, the small island nation of Trinidad and Tobago is caught right in the middle. Chuck Holton has the story.
Over the past month, the United States stepped up operations against Venezuelan smuggling networks in the Caribbean. Several fast boats suspected of trafficking drugs were destroyed in international waters. But for fishermen in Trinidad, only 7 miles from Venezuela, those strikes felt far too close for comfort.
This is the Gulf of Paria behind me. These islands over here are still part of Trinidad. This route that we're on right now in this boat is the route that smugglers take if they're bringing drugs or people or whatever across to Trinidad. So there's a heavy presence of the Coast Guard of the Trinidad and Tobago Armed Forces that patrols this area, but of course most of the smuggling takes place late at night. The fishermen who ply these waters to just try to make a living are now being told not to go more than 2 kilometers from the shore for the time being because they're all afraid of getting blown up.
I'm a fisherman for 28 years, fishing in Trinidad and Tobago waters. Yes, we are all panicking. The Coast Guard say, well, 2 kilometers off the island, don't go that direction. But anywhere else up on the coast, this side we could fish. Venezuela is 7 miles away from Trinidad, very, very close. That you can look and see it. You can see a vehicle passing on the land. Futs is very close.
The fear is understandable. From Trinidad's western shores, you can actually see the lights of Venezuela at night. And any escalation between the two countries would hit here first.
This is the island of Chacachacari. The land that you can see right off over there, about 7 miles away, is the closest point in Venezuela. So you can see why people in Trinidad are concerned about the conflict that might be brewing between the United States and Venezuela simply because the Trinidadians know that wars have a way of spreading, and if they do, these people are not prepared for that in any way, shape, or form.
The government here has a long history of working with the United States, most recently welcoming the USS Gravely for joint military training. That alliance has drawn sharp criticism from Venezuela, which responded by canceling oil contracts worth millions. But local journalists say the American presence is also choking off the flow of drugs and illegal migration across these waters.
It's very, very challenging for the fishermen who daily lives depend on fishing and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it has to be like that for now.
The increased patrols may have disrupted the drug trade, but they've also fueled political friction. Many in Trinidad worry their country could be drawn into the conflict.
And so the ships and whatnot. Recently, we had a military exercise. Venezuelans are saying that is provocation. But you realize that the Maduro administration, they are targeting our government. They are calling the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago a murderer, a terrorist, all sorts of things.
But after the Trump administration briefed Congress that the United States currently has no legal justification to strike inside Venezuela, lawmakers were told any direct action against the Maduro regime would require fresh legal authority and a new strategic decision from the president himself. For the people of Trinidad, that news brings a brief sigh of relief, but the fear of what could come next still lingers. From Trinidad, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
All right, Chuck, thank you for that report. Coming up, one of America's greatest allies pays tribute to the late Charlie Kirk. That's when Faith Nation returns. All right, welcome back. Reverend Jesse Jackson's family says the civil rights leader is in stable condition this evening and remains hospitalized without the assistance of machines. The statement from Jackson's Rainbow Push Coalition is contrary to media reports that Jackson was on life support. Family members say they're grateful for prayers and Jackson's medical team. Jackson has been fighting health issues, including Parkinson's disease, and was diagnosed with a debilitating neurological disorder back in April. Moving now to Israel, where Christians and Jews held a special tribute to Charlie Kirk. This as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes back on international plans to create a Palestinian state. Paul Petit brings us the latest from Jerusalem.
The United Nations Security Council is set to vote on the Trump administration's international stabilization plan. Netanyahu warned in Sunday's cabinet meeting that no plan should open the door for a Palestinian state.
I've been resisting these attempts for decades and have been doing so in the face of both external and internal pressures. So I do not need reinforcements and tweets and lectures from anyone.
He also said that Hamas will be demilitarized the hard way or the easy way with the support of President Trump. Hamas issued a statement ahead of the vote, saying any disarmament violates the right to resistance and Palestinian sovereignty. Sunday night, Israel honored a fallen ally in Jerusalem. More than 100 people turned out to pay tribute to Charlie Kirk, with music and multiple speakers sharing their memories.
It is hard to believe that Charlie Kirk is no longer with us. The world is quieter, less challenging place without his voice.
Kirk made clear his love for the Holy Land, and on this night, people here, even Orthodox Jews, gathered to show their love for him.
Charlie Kirk was a giant. He was a giant.
Kirk was quoted as saying that when he came here to Israel, he came in contact with the living God, and the Bible came to life. That's why he says his favorite trip he ever took was to Israel, and the second favorite trip he ever took was to Israel.
The first guest I invited as a minister to speak at our upcoming international conference on combating anti-Semitism.
Speakers shared how Kirk learned the importance of observing the Sabbath and became a staunch advocate for Israel.
I am very pro-Israel as far as the promise of the Jewish people, 7 million individuals out of 14, having a home. I believe that is an idea that needs to be defended, a Jewish state in the Middle East.
The program included a live question-answer segment moderated by CBN's Chris Mitchell, who spoke with Kirk's pastor and spiritual advisor, Rob McCoy.
Charlie looked at politics as an on-ramp to Christianity. He figured if he could get these young people rowing in the streams of liberty, they'd come to its source.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed with many Americans when he posted on X that Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom. Netanyahu says he talked to Kirk 2 weeks before his assassination and invited him to Israel. That visit never took place. Paul Petit, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Paul, thank you so much for that report. Well, still ahead, a heartwarming reunion for a sea otter and its pup. That's next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a stranded sea otter was reunited with his mother in Central California after a dramatic rescue. It's all thanks to the persistence of the Marine Mammal Center, who received a call about distressed cries coming from Morro Bay. You can hear them there. The crew found that the calls were coming from a 2-week-old sea otter pup that had been separated from its mother. They jumped into action, pulling the baby otter named Caterpillar into a boat and circling the area looking for its mother. The crew played Caterpillar's recorded cries on a speaker and finally caught the attention of the mother, who began following the boat. Once rescuers lowered Caterpillar into the water, the pup's mother quickly scooped up her baby. So sweet.
I definitely cried a bit. We did it. We found it. This is a really rare opportunity.
The reunion is significant to the region, where sea otters play a big role in maintaining the banks and biodiversity. All right, that's going to do it for us today on Faith Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.